Mhm. So today we are going to look at inheritance. Previously, we've looked at several things. We've looked at, if we can go back in time, we know that we are going to look at classes and objects, constructors and destructors, access modifiers and inheritance. So far we've already discovered the basics of OOP. We've understood what OOP is theoretically, and we've looked at classes and objects, constructors and destructors, access modifiers. These were in the previous session. Now we are going to look at inheritance. So what is inheritance and why is it important? In object-oriented programming, classes can obtain a behavior of another class, or a class can inherit a behavior of another class. When a class inherits another, the inheriting class is referred to as a child class. The one being inherited is referred to as a parent. And what happens is that usually the child class can only inherit the public and protected properties and methods. So the private won't be inherited, are not modifiable, and cannot be accessed in the child class. This means the child class now has its own properties and methods together with the ones it has inherited from the parent or base class. I believe this is one of the reasons why OOP is so important to programmers, because it's such a programming paradigm that enables you to extend other code instead of re-implementing that code or reinventing the wheel. So you use the existing code and extend it, as opposed to copying code bases from functions or from files and then pasting them in your own files to use them. So having looked at that, or having heard about that, we can now see how inheritance is implemented in real world. So we shall go to VS Code and pick it up from there. So right here I have my folder. I'll add a file called human.php. In this file I'll add some code. Add the class human. Oh, before that I'll open the PHP tag, of course, and with the class human, then do that. So this human class is going to behave as our parent class. It will have some public methods, and we can take it simple by defining two public properties, which is age and name. Then we can put our constructor. If you remember, we looked at constructors. We use the function keyword and two underscores, then the keyword construct. We shall give it some parameters, the name and the age. Then we shall implement it, and the implementation is only about assigning the name and the age from the user to the object, because age. So the one on the left, this one on the left refers to this one, and this one refers to this one. But then name refers to the name that is being passed as a parameter, and the age here on the right refers to the age that is being passed through the parameter. So we can go ahead and define a method. Probably we can define a method which says hello or hi. So function public I mean public function, sorry, say hello. So we know that functions of a class are referred to as methods, and we can say hello, my name is, because we want it to output the name, my name is, then we can say, can put here this and say this name. Still this one refers to the property of the class, and I am this age years old. So we've just created our string, and can put a new line there because we are going to output it on the terminal. We are not the browser. So after doing this, this is going to be our parent class. Now we can as well create a child class. The child class will inherit the parent, which is human. So, and how does the child class inherit the parent? What we can do, we can call this person, this child programmer, and we use a keyword extends human. So you define your class, use the keyword extends, and then specify the class it's extending. Now, because this class here, everything here, every method and property we have is a public, so all of these will be inherited. Okay, so what does that mean? What that means is that the programmer maybe have one property, which is probably the language that this guy programs in. So we can now define the constructor, and we can say public function, and this constructor is inheriting the other constructor from the parent. So it takes in name, age, and it can take in a third parameter. Now, how will it use these? Simple. The way to use this is that name, age are going to be passed to the parent, constructor. This is how we refer to the parent constructor. We use the keyword parent, then 2 colons or a pair of colons, put double underscores, and then specify the constructor. Now we shall pass the name and the age. These will be entered to the programmer object or to the instance of the programmer from here. Then they will be passed here, and once they are passed here, the implementation of the parent class will happen of assigning name to this and age to this. Now let's continue. So now what we are left with is to assign the language, because for it is just passed here, but it's not assigned to this public property language of the class. So we can now say equals language. Okay, now we can proceed and implement another method here, public, because this function, remember the parent function was saying hello. Now this one is going to say the language the programmer is programming. This, I need to put this language. Yeah, programmer. So if we put in Python, it will say I'm a Python programmer when we on the instance of the programmer object, I mean on the instance of the programmer class. So Now we can, after implementing, okay, let's recap a bit before we start using the classes. We've created a class human, added two properties, which is the name and age, added a constructor method. We said that a constructor method is the method that is executed at the creation of the instance of a class. Then we created another method, which is say hello, so that it can say hello to us and tell us the name of the human. Okay. Then we've gone down over here and extended human by creating a class called programmer extending human, and we said that all the public properties and methods of a parent class will be inherited by the child class. So the public, we have here public function construct. This one is a constructor for the programmer, and it is utilizing the construct of the parent, which is human. After that, it is assigning the language that has been passed via the constructor to the properties of programmer class. Then it has a function code, it has a method code which outputs the programming language the developer is programming. So how can we use these? We can instantiate a human, and we can also instantiate a programmer. How we are going to instantiate this human? Shall say human equals new human. Then this human expects the age and the name. So we can put the name and we put the age. Okay. Then we can say human, say hello, like that. And so this one we can, before we create another object, let's first test this one and we see how it works, so that we build it up from there. So here in the terminal, I'll just write php human.php, and you can see, hello, my name is David and I'm 33 years old. So what happens is that if we go over here, we know that that's what we've implemented on line number 11. And we know that the way the object has been able to get the name and the age is through the arguments we've passed to the human class, and they have been implemented by the constructor method. Okay, so you can see that for us to output I am, hello, my name is David and whatever, we've invoked the method say hello. So now we are going to continue and create the programmer equals new programmer. Remember, the programmer inherits the what? The programmer inherits the human. So here we are going to pass things like we can pass David and the age and the language. So something like that. And then we can say hello, and at the same time we can say the code. So shall say programmer say hello. Okay, this demonstrates that the method in the parent class has been inherited by programmer object or class. So let's see, we can say programmer code like that, and we shall, for now, we shall comment that out so that we don't see a lot of things on the terminal. So clear, and I'll expand the terminal a bit just in case the content is too much, and then we can say php human.php, and you can see, hello, my name is David, I'm 25 years old, I'm a JavaScript programmer. But you know that in the programmer object, in the programmer class here, we don't have anything like say hello. But you've seen we've been able to output what this method as output or outputs, which is from the parent class. That has been able to happen because programmer class inherited the human class, which human class as a public method say hello. I guess that's clear. And code has been got from the programmer class itself from line number 24 here. Yes. All right. Now we can go on. We've seen how to inherit a class, and you've seen that the public methods and properties are usually inherited. But what if we had a human class and a programmer class, but we don't want the programmer to inherit some methods and properties? What would we do? That is very simple. Introduce the private properties, and those will remain on the private properties will remain or will stay on the parent class and will never be inherited. Let's demonstrate it in another file here, which I will call human2.php. Oh, what am I doing? Should delete that. Then human2.php. Sorry about that. Then open PHP. So what we are going to do with this one is we are trying to demonstrate how we can have private methods. So here we are going to create another class human, okay, and it's going to have a private property gender, okay. And it is going to have a protected property address. Okay. Then we can have our public constructor, which of course you know it's usually used for assigning values from the user to the object. And I'll do just that. Look at me. Okay. And address equals to address. Like that. I believe the constructor is done. Now we can start to implement some other things, like we can implement the get gender, which will help us to return the gender. I'll use this kind of return this gender, and then we need the home address as well. So, and this one can say protected get address, and it can echo okay, yeah, I am from, then this address is what I'll put, and then I'll put a new line character. Then instead of this, I'll set print address instead of say address. Yeah, I want to use something that is more relatable with what I implement. Now we can say I'm trying to think. Yeah, now let's try to implement a function which is public but can use a private, what do we call it? It can use a private property. So I'll say function introduce and then echo hello, my gender is this gender, and we can also output the address from here. This say address we are going to see. All right, now we need to we've implemented the base class. I should close this, which is the human. It has a private property gender, protected property address, a private method constructor which does that. It also has a public method gender which returns the gender, and then here it has a protected method say address which outputs this. So it is meant to echo out I am from the value that will be put here. Now, and then we've also implemented a method that introduces this person or the human. So, and it says hello, my gender is that, and it also says the address that would have been assigned via here. All right, so now let's implement the class that is going to inherit the human, and still that class is going to be called programmer extends human. And what will it do? The programming language is now gonna be private. It can't be exposed to other objects if they inherit the programmer. Then the programmer can have his own constructor to assign a few things like the programmer gender and address and the programming language, similar to what we've just done before. Okay, now let's implement. So here what happens is that we can get the parent, because the parent is a public, because the constructor is a public constructor, so we assign gender here and we also assign address. Then we can assign the language. Oh no, because language. Okay, then we can also do a public function here which says the address of the programmer, and all it does is says I work at or in. Okay, I just say in this address. Then new line, then close. And then what we can also introduce the programmer, but the most important is the code. So public function code, and now what can we say? What can we say? So how can we get the code? let's just do this the same way we did the parent. So here it has say address and get gender. So we are going to say here public function get language, and then after that we shall just say let it return the language. Okay, and then down here on code we just have to now say echo I am a this get language. This is a method and program. Full stop, new line. Okay. Then what else? I think this is it. So what we are doing here is very simple. We have created a class called programmer which extends human, and we said that extends means to inherit, so which inherits human class, and then we've given it a property private language, which means that if there is any class that is going to inherit programmer, will never have the language property unless that class itself defines the private. Okay, now here we can say, here we said public function construct gender address language, and this address and gender are going to be passed to the I made a spelling error here, parent. So it's going to be passed to the human class, and the human class will handle the assignment of the gender and address. And remember that the gender and address in the human class, gender is private, address is protected. Okay, so we are yet to see. Then we went ahead and assigned the language to this property here on line number 27. Then implemented the say address, which will output the address where the programmer works. And then we got the language. We expected that the language has been assigned as a private, and now here we are returning it using a method, and then here we are outputting. This method here is being used here in the code method, so that whatever it returns is output as part of the string. Now we need to test and see if we get errors or not. So here what we are more interested in is the programmer, because the programmer inherits the parent, and the parent has some private property, and we said that private properties are not inherited. So we create a programmer object or instance, and we said gender is male, address is Kampala, and language is PHP. Okay, we close that, and we now are going to use this from where is introduced. You see this introduce is a public, so we expect that even if, since it's public, even if it's on the human class, it is accessible to the programmer. So we shall start by introducing, and we see if it works. So introduce. So let's test this before we test other things. I've opened the terminal, cleared it, and then PHP run human2, because all of this code is in the human2. You see, hello, my gender is male, I work in Kampala. Let's go and see. If we come here, address is protected, gender is private. Now, if we come here, the constructor is assigning gender to this, and this one to the gender of the human class, and the address to the address of the human class. Then we are getting the gender, which is here, through this function, which is public, and we are also getting, then we come here on introduce, and we say hello. So you set the gender has been already set, and the reason why that is possible, because you may wonder, gender is private, why has it been set on the programmer? So if we go back here on the programmer, we shall see that the programmer is utilizing the parent constructor, and yet this constructor is actually a what? This constructor is a public. So, and the constructor is the one implementing things here. So in other words, here it's not, the programmer is not the one assigning the gender, but the human is the one assigning the gender and the address. That's why it's able to work. Okay, let's continue to using code method of the. So if we use this, what do we expect to happen? I believe it will output the language the programmer is programming in. So if you say that, you see I'm a PHP programmer. That all works. So now we can also get the gender, so on and so forth. But how can we sure that this, let's say for example, can we output gender from here, programmer gender? Can we do that? Let's see. We shall remove these, we shall comment them out, and we see whether really program has access to gender. Do you see that? It says undefined property gender. Reason is, here in this class of programmer there is nothing like gender, and gender is in this parent class which was inherited. So the only way we can access gender from the programmer is by either using any method which is public, or like now this one, get gender. I believe that would be able to give us the gender here, because it's, let's see, get gender, and I should invoke it as a method. Then I'll clear, and then I can say human 2. You see, it has been able to output email. Why? Because this is a public method. If we go to the human class, it's a public method. Okay, so it is able to work. Then what else? I think that's a clear indication of this. So this means that if I want to output the language in another way, I can still output it, because if I wanted to output the programming language, I would still say programmer private language, because the programmer is able to access the programmer object is able to access its private objects. I mean its private methods and properties. Yeah, I don't know why that these properties and methods keep confusing me with objects and sometimes with function. Yeah, can't access private programmer. Oh, wait. Yeah, Yeah, let's see. Private programmer. Oh yes. Sorry, I almost misled you. Yeah, because the private methods and what private and methods and properties cannot be accessed outside the class, and the class starts from here, line number 26. That's the programmer class up to line 45. So if I try to access programmer, I cannot, because it can't be accessed outside, since it has a private access modifier. If you want to learn more about access modifiers, you have to watch the private video. Otherwise, that's it about inheritance. You've seen how we are able to, uh, instead of defining address and gender on the programmer, we've accessed them via the human class, which means that now you have, if you were implementing, let me say if someone had given you this class alone, the human class alone, instead of you rewriting the code in the human class, you would just write your programmer code and leave the rest to the human class. Yeah, the other thing is that I think we can look at that later in another session. That's about the final keyword, whereby you can make sure that even if, I think we can check it now. Yeah, let's check it now instead. So for example, if I want, like, if I have a public function, should it be a public function? Maybe I can make it, yeah, let's say public function, uh, what, public function, what do humans say? Health. Okay, let's say health, and we say let's just say steps, get steps, or say steps walked. Okay, so here we can say echo maybe 1k steps. Okay, 1k steps. But then we can go, let's first output this, and you see I'll comment this out, and then on the programmer, because it's public, the programmer has access to it. So programmer say steps walked, like that, and then you can clear here and output. So it says there 10k steps. But what if in the programmer we want to have the same class, the same method in the programmer function? Can we use it? Can we use it? Because if we just come here and say public function, say steps walked, this is called it's like overriding, you know, the method that is existing from the class that is being inherited. So if we can say hey, 2k steps, and save. Let's see. You see now, instead of showing us 2k steps, 1k steps, it is showing us 2k steps. Why? Because this method over here in the programmer class has overridden the one in the human class. However, we can ensure that that doesn't happen by using the final keyword on this. So if we use the final keyword here, the programmer can now, the programmer cannot have a function, a method that has the same name as the one it's inheriting. That's why you see a red thing here, a red line here. So now if I'm echoing, let's see what will happen. If I test fatal error cannot override the final method human say steps worked. So you see they're even outputting human here to show you that there is a method in the human class which is called say steps worked, and we cannot have the same method on line number 50 in the class that is inheriting the parent class. So that's one more thing I wanted us to see about inheritance. So the rest is for you to practice with other, with some other use cases, but this is what I could bring today. Thank you for watching. If you are new to this channel, please consider subscribing and click the bell notification icon so that you can know whenever I publish a new tutorial. See you in the next.